The message arrived at exactly Oro 900 hours Galactic Standard Time. Every communication device in known space lit up with the same transmission. Emperor Thrain VII of the Valthor Dominion sat on his golden throne, his three eyes gleaming with what he believed was righteous anger. Behind him stood 1,000 warriors in crimson armor, their weapons raised high. "People of the galaxy," the Emperor's voice boomed across the stars. "The Valthor Dominion has ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. We have brought order to chaos. We have united the weak under our strength. But now a young species dares to refuse our guidance. The humans of Earth have rejected our generous offer to join our empire. They have insulted our honor. They have questioned our authority. Therefore, as of this moment, a state of war exists between the Valthor Dominion and humanity. We give them one choice: surrender or face complete destruction." The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, billions of beings held their breath. They waited for the human response. They expected panic. They expected desperate pleas for mercy. They expected anything except what actually happened. On Earth, in the capital city of New Geneva, Ambassador Hana Kim sat in her office, sipping tea. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes. She had served Earth's diplomatic corps for 40 years. She had negotiated with pirates, reasoned with warlords, and once talked down a space monster that was eating a mining station. An angry emperor was just another Tuesday. Her assistant rushed into the room, his face pale. "Ambassador, did you see the transmission? The Valthor Dominion just declared war on us." Hana looked up from her tea. "Yes, I saw it. Please send them a message. Tell them we acknowledge their declaration and request formal coordinates for a diplomatic meeting." "Standard protocol." The assistant stared at her. But they declared war. "Shouldn't we do something?" "We are doing something," Hana said. "We're following proper procedures. Also, please order lunch for the staff. I think today will be a long day." 3,000 light-years away, Captain Minho Park stood on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel Horizon's Edge. He was a tall man with a friendly face and steady hands. He had been flying diplomatic missions for 15 years. He had visited over 200 alien worlds. He knew how first contacts usually went, and he knew how wars usually started. His communication officer looked worried. "Captain, the Valthor Empire just declared war. Should we return to Earth?" Minho checked their current position. They were in neutral space, heading toward a trade conference. "No, continue on course. But send a message to command. Ask them if they need us to change our schedule." "That's it? They declared war and we're just asking about our schedule? What else should we do?" Minho asked. "Panic. That won't help anyone. We're diplomats, not soldiers. We do our job until someone tells us to do something else." On Mars, in the command center of the combined space fleet, Admiral Junho Lee sat in his office reviewing reports. He was an old man now, with white hair and scars from 3 different wars against pirates and raiders. He had been expecting this war for a long time. Not hoping for it, but expecting it. His second officer came in without knocking. "Sir, the Valthor declared war. Orders?" Junho didn't look up from his reports. "Order all ships to continue routine operations. Tell fleet commanders to proceed with scheduled maintenance and training exercises. Nothing changes. Nothing changes. Sir, they have 12,000 star systems. We have 47. Their fleet is 50 times larger than ours." "I know how to count," Junho said. "I also know how to read intelligence reports. Continue routine operations." Across human space, life continued as normal. On Earth, children went to school. On Mars, factories produced goods. On the colony world of New Busan, farmers harvested crops. Stock markets remained stable. No one panicked. No one ran. People talked about the war declaration the same way they talked about the weather. This confused the rest of the galaxy greatly. On the Valthor homeworld, Emperor Thrain VII waited for the human response. He expected begging. He expected offers of tribute. He expected fear. What he received was a simple, formal message. "The Earth Diplomatic Corps acknowledges the Valthor Dominion's declaration of war. We request coordinates for a formal discussion of terms and conditions. Please advise on scheduling. We remain available for dialogue at your convenience." The Emperor read the message 3 times. Then he threw his communication device across the throne room. "What does this mean? Terms and conditions? Scheduling? I declared war on them." His chief advisor, an ancient Valthor named Draxus, stepped forward carefully. Perhaps, my Emperor, they do not understand what war means. They are a young species. Maybe they think this is some kind of negotiation. Then they are fools, Thrain said. Send them another message. Tell them they have 30 days to surrender. After that, we invade. The message went out. Across the galaxy, other species watched and worried. The Valthor Dominion had never lost a war. They had conquered 300 species. Their military was legendary. Their weapons could crack planets. Their ships could darken suns. And the humans were just having tea and asking about schedules. The Galactic News Network sent reporters to Earth. They wanted to interview panicking humans. They wanted to show frightened faces and desperate preparation. Instead, they found a world going about its business. They found people working, eating, laughing, living. One reporter managed to interview an elderly human woman sitting in a park. Excuse me, ma'am. The Valthor Empire just declared war on humanity. How do you feel about that? The woman looked up from her book. Oh, that. Well, it's unfortunate. I hope our diplomats can sort it out. These things usually work out in the end. But aren't you afraid? The Valthor have destroyed entire civilizations. Young man, I'm 80 years old. I've lived through 3 economic crashes, 2 pandemics, and a meteor strike. I'm sure our government knows what it's doing. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm at a very exciting part of my book. The interview went viral across the galaxy. Billions watched the calm, unconcerned human woman and wondered if humanity was incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Back on the horizon's edge, Captain Minho received new orders. Command wanted him to attend a peace conference that the Valthor had arranged. His officers knew it was obviously a trap. Everyone knew it was a trap. The Valthor weren't subtle, so we're not going, right? His pilot asked. Minho smiled. Of course we're going. We're diplomats. We go to peace conferences. That's literally our job. Besides, it would be rude to refuse an invitation. But Captain, they'll probably try to capture us or kill us. Probably, Minho agreed. That's why we're going unarmed and on schedule. We'll show them that humans keep their appointments, even the dangerous ones. It sends a message. What message? That we're not afraid of them. Ambassador Hana received the same orders. She was to attend the peace conference as Earth's representative. She began preparing her documents with the same care she gave to every diplomatic mission. She packed formal clothes, contract papers, and 3 different types of tea. She always brought tea to negotiations. It helped people calm down. Admiral Junho, meanwhile, issued quiet orders to his fleet commanders. Nothing obvious. Nothing that would look like war preparation. Just routine maintenance schedules that happened to put ships in very specific positions. Just training exercises that happened to practice very specific scenarios. Just supply runs that happened to stockpile very specific materials. To any outside observer, the human military looked completely unprepared. They looked like they were doing nothing at all. That was exactly the point. The 30-day countdown began. The galaxy watched and waited. The Valthor prepared their invasion fleet. And humanity remained calm. 3 weeks passed since Emperor Thrain's declaration of war. 3 weeks of waiting, 3 weeks of watching, and 3 weeks of increasing confusion for the Valthor Dominion. High Commander Draxus stood in the war room, staring at holographic displays of human space. Around him, his officers looked equally puzzled. The displays showed something that made no sense. Human worlds continued their normal routines. No massive fleet movements, no planetary evacuations, no panic buying or hoarding, nothing. This cannot be correct, Draxus said to his intelligence officer. Check the sensors again. The officer, a young Valthor named Corvin, checked his instruments for the 15th time that day. Sir, the readings are accurate. On Earth, schools are operating on normal schedules. On Mars, the factory output has actually increased by 3%. On New Busan, they just opened a new entertainment complex. There is no indication of war preparation. Another officer spoke up. Sir, maybe they are hiding their military buildup? Using stealth technology? Draxus considered this. Show me their military fleet positions. The display changed. It showed the locations of human warships throughout their territory. Most were docked at stations. Some were conducting what appeared to be routine patrols. A few were in maintenance yards being repaired. Nothing unusual. Nothing threatening. This is impossible, Draxus said. We declared war on them. They should be mobilizing. They should be fortifying their worlds. They should be doing something. Corvin cleared his throat nervously. Sir, there is one explanation. Perhaps they do not understand what war is. They are a young species. They may not have experienced a real interstellar conflict before. That must be it, Draxus said, relief flooding through him. They are simply too primitive to understand the danger they face. This will be easier than we thought. But not everyone in the Valthor command was so confident. War Prince Krell, the Emperor's nephew, studied the human behavior with growing unease. He was young for a Valthor commander, only 300 years old, but he had fought in 12 campaigns. He knew what fear looked like. He also knew what confidence looked like. The humans looked confident. On Earth, Dr. Sora Choi sat in her laboratory at the Xenopsychology Institute. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a mind that never stopped analyzing patterns. For the past 10 years, she had studied Valthor culture, psychology, and military history. She knew them better than they knew themselves. Her assistant brought her another cup of coffee. Dr. Choi, you've been reviewing these files for 14 hours straight. Maybe you should rest? Sora shook her head. Not yet. I need to finish this analysis for the military command. Look at this. She pulled up a display showing Valthor military campaigns from the past 1,000 years. They have fought exactly 307 wars. They won all of them. But look at the pattern. The assistant leaned in. What am I looking for? Every species they fought responded the same way. Fear, panic, immediate military mobilization, rushed defense preparations. The Valthor are used to enemies who react emotionally. They have strategies for dealing with fear and aggression, but they have no experience with enemies who remain calm. So our calmness confuses them. More than that, Sora said. It frightens them. They don't understand it, which means they can't predict it. And prediction is the foundation of all military strategy. She sent her report to Admiral Junho. The message was simple. The Valthor expect us to be afraid. Our calmness is a weapon. Continue as we are. Captain Minho Park and the Horizon's Edge arrived at the peace conference location exactly on schedule. The Valthor had chosen a neutral space station in the border region. The station was surrounded by 50 Valthor warships. Any reasonable person would recognize this as a trap. Minho's crew certainly did. Captain, those are attack cruisers, his tactical officer said. They have weapons charged and targeting systems active. We should leave. We have an appointment, Minho said calmly. Prepare the docking procedures. But Captain, we're diplomats, Minho interrupted gently. We don't run from meetings just because they might be dangerous. That's literally in the job description. Besides, we came unarmed as requested. What can they do? Shoot an unarmed diplomatic vessel? That would be a terrible public relations problem for them. The Horizon's Edge docked smoothly. Minho and his small delegation walked through the airlock into the station. They wore formal diplomatic uniforms, not armor. They carried datapads, not weapons. They looked exactly like what they were. Diplomats arriving for a meeting. The Valthor guards stared at them in disbelief. In the conference room, Ambassador Hana Kim was already waiting. She had arrived 2 hours earlier in a separate ship. She sat at the long table, reviewing documents and occasionally sipping tea from a thermos she had brought. When Minho entered, she looked up and smiled. Captain Park, good to see you. Right on time as always. Ambassador Kim. Minho nodded. Is their delegation ready? They're making us wait. Standard intimidation tactic. I brought extra tea if you'd like some. They waited for an hour, then another hour. The Valthor were trying to make them nervous, to make them feel uncertain. It was an old negotiation trick. Make the other side wait, make them anxious, then arrive with a position of strength. Finally, the doors opened. High Commander Draxus entered with a dozen armed guards. He was a massive Valthor, nearly 3 meters tall, with scarred armor and weapons that hummed with energy. He looked like war itself had taken physical form. Hana stood and bowed politely. High Commander Draxus, thank you for meeting with us. Please sit. Would you like some tea? Draxus stared at her. This tiny, elderly human woman was offering him tea. He had surrounded this station with warships. He had kept them waiting for hours. He had brought armed guards, and she was offering him tea. I did not come here for tea, Draxus growled. I came to accept your surrender. Hana smiled pleasantly. I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. We're here to discuss the terms of your surrender, not ours. The room went silent. The Valthor guards gripped their weapons tighter. Draxus's 3 eyes widened in shock. Then he laughed. It was a harsh, grinding sound like rocks breaking. You think we will surrender? To you? You have 47 star systems. We have 12,000. Your fleet could not defeat a single one of our battle groups. You are insects compared to our might. Yes, we're familiar with the numbers, Hana said, still calm. She opened her datapad. However, we've reviewed your military history, your economic structure, your political stability, and your supply chain logistics. We've concluded that a prolonged conflict would be catastrophic for your empire, even if you won militarily. So we're offering you the opportunity to withdraw your declaration of war with no loss of face. We can frame it as a diplomatic misunderstanding. Draxus leaned forward, his massive frame looming over the table. You dare to lecture me about war? I have commanded fleets for 200 years. I have conquered 50 worlds. I have destroyed species that were stronger than yours. I'm sure you have, Minho said pleasantly. Your military record is impressive. However, this meeting isn't about military strength. It's about whether this war is actually in your best interests. The Emperor has spoken. The war will continue. Hana sighed and closed her datapad. That's unfortunate. We had hoped for a peaceful resolution. However, we respect your decision. The conference is concluded. Thank you for your time. She stood and began packing her documents. Minho did the same. They moved calmly, without hurry, without fear. Draxus watched them in confusion. That's it? You're just leaving? The meeting is over, Hana said. We presented our position, you presented yours. No agreement was reached. That's how negotiations work. We'll continue our diplomatic efforts through other channels. You will not leave this station, Draxus said. You are our prisoners. Hana looked at him with mild disappointment. High Commander, capturing diplomats during a peace conference would violate 17 different galactic treaties. It would also turn every neutral species against you. I don't think Emperor Thrain would appreciate that. But if you insist, we'll file the appropriate protest with the Galactic Council. She walked toward the door. The guards raised their weapons. Draxus held up a hand to stop them. He couldn't do it. She was right. Capturing them would be a disaster for the Valthor's reputation. The humans left the station calmly and returned to their ships. As the Horizon's Edge undocked and flew away, Minho's tactical officer finally spoke. Captain, we just walked into a trap, insulted them, and walked out again. How are we still alive? Because, Minho said, they're more confused than angry, and confusion is a kind of victory. Back on Earth, General Taiyang Xin reviewed troop deployments with his staff. Taiyang was a practical man with a dry sense of humor. He had spent 30 years in the military and learned that the best battles were the ones you never had to fight. Sir, the Valthor ultimatum expires in 1 week, his aide said. Should we begin evacuation of border colonies? No, Taiyang said. Continue with scheduled rotation of garrison forces. Make it look like routine personnel movements. Also, I need you to authorize 3,000 transport ships for what we're calling agricultural supply redistribution. Sir, those transport ships are military grade. Yes, but we're filling them with... The 30-day deadline expired at midnight, Galactic Standard Time. War Prince Krell stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Crimson Dawn, watching his fleet advance into human space. 200 warships surrounded him in perfect formation. Behind them, another 1,800 ships waited in reserve. It was overwhelming force. It was unstoppable power. It should have been glorious. Instead, Krell felt uneasy. His second-in-command, Commander Vex, noticed his expression. My prince, you seem troubled. We are about to win a great victory. Yes, Krell said slowly. But look at the sensor readings. Where is their fleet? The tactical display showed the new Busan system ahead. It was a human colony world with 5 million inhabitants. It had farms, factories, and 3 orbital stations. Intelligence reports said it had minimal military defenses. It should be an easy first target, but something felt wrong. Sir, we're detecting civilian transport ships leaving the planet, the sensor officer reported. Looks like an evacuation. Are they panicking? Vex asked eagerly. No, sir. They're moving in organized patterns, following scheduled routes. It's very orderly. Krell watched the display. The evacuation was too calm, too organized. This wasn't panic. This was a plan they had practiced. How long have they been evacuating? According to the transport signatures, they started 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks. Before the deadline expired. They had known the Valthor were coming and had begun preparations early. Not rushed, not panicked. Just methodical and planned. My prince, we're entering the system now, the navigation officer announced. The fleet crossed into New Busan space. Krell expected alarms, weapons fire, desperate defense. Instead, the system was quiet, almost empty. The orbital stations were there, but no warships defended them. The planet below still showed life signs, but fewer than expected. "This is strange," Vex muttered. "Where are their defenses?" "Sir, the orbital stations are powering up," Tactical called out. "They're not weapons platforms. They're automated defense satellites. Then destroy them." The Valthor ships opened fire. Missiles streaked toward the stations. Plasma bolts cut through space. Enough firepower to level a city, and every single shot missed. The satellites moved, not just dodging, but dancing through space with impossible precision. They twisted, turned, and accelerated in ways that should have been impossible for automated systems. The Valthor weapons struck nothing but empty space. "What is this?" Vex shouted. "How are they doing this?" Krell studied the movement patterns. The satellites weren't just fast. They were predicting where the Valthor would shoot before they shot. Like they knew the targeting patterns, like they had studied every Valthor weapon system and calculated the optimal defense. "They've been watching us," Krell said quietly. "All this time, they've been studying how we fight." "Sir, should we launch fighters?" "No, continue to the planet. Prepare landing forces." Far away on a small stealth ship invisible to Valthor sensors, Commander Jiwan Bayek smiled. She was a compact woman with quick hands and quicker mind. She had been shadowing the Valthor fleet for 3 weeks, watching their every move, recording their every pattern. "Captain, the Valthor are moving toward New Busan's surface," her sensor officer reported. "Good," Jiwan said. "Send the data to ground forces. Let them know the Valthor are taking the bait." On New Busan's surface, Corporal Daeun Yoon crouched in a forest with her marine unit. Daeun was young, barely 25, but she had trained for 5 years for moments like this. Around her, 49 other Marines waited in absolute silence. They wore adaptive camouflage that made them nearly invisible. They carried weapons designed for precision, not spectacle. "Contact in 3 minutes," her lieutenant whispered through the comm. "Remember, we capture, not kill." "Command wants prisoners." Daeun checked her weapon for the 10th time. It was set to stun. All Marine weapons were set to stun. They had strict orders: capture the landing force intact. They needed to send a message. The Valthor dropships came down like falling stars. 40 ships carrying 50 soldiers each, 2,000 warriors in total. They landed in a clearing that looked like a perfect staging area. Open ground. Good visibility. Easy to defend. Also surrounded by human Marines on every side. The Valthor soldiers poured out of their ships, weapons ready, scanning for threats. They found none. The area appeared empty. A Valthor officer, Commander Wrath, stepped forward. "Spread out. Secure the perimeter. This world is now property of the Valthor Dominion." That's when Daeun and her unit struck. It happened so fast that most Valthor never understood what hit them. Stun pulses came from every direction. Marines appeared from nowhere, moving with practiced precision. The Valthor tried to fight back, but their weapons were designed for open warfare, not close-quarters combat. The humans were too close, too fast, too coordinated. 15 minutes later, 2,000 Valthor soldiers lay unconscious on the ground. 50 human Marines stood guard over them. No human casualties. No Valthor deaths. Just a clean, efficient capture. Daeun activated her comm. "Lieutenant, area secure. 2,000 prisoners ready for transport." "Good work, Corporal. Transport ships are on their way." Commander Wrath woke up an hour later in a human holding facility. He was unharmed, but his weapons were gone. Around him, his entire force sat in confusion. Human guards watched them calmly, not with victory or mockery, just professional observation. A human medical officer came to check on him. She was gentle, efficient. "Are you feeling all right?" "The stun pulse can cause headaches." Wrath stared at her. You captured my entire force." "Yes, we had orders to avoid casualties. Your people will be held safely until this conflict is resolved. Is there anything you need? Water, food?" This wasn't how war was supposed to work. The humans should have killed them or tortured them. Instead, they were offering water. In orbit, War Prince Krell received the report from his landing force. Or rather, the lack of report. Communication had simply stopped. Then a human transmission arrived. It showed Commander Wrath and his soldiers unharmed but captured. A human voice spoke calmly. "War Prince Krell, your landing force has been secured. They are being treated well according to galactic conventions. If you wish to discuss their return, please contact our diplomatic corps." They have an appointment available tomorrow at 1400 hours. Vex slammed his fist on the console. This is an outrage. They dare mock us. But Krell understood. This wasn't mockery. This was a demonstration. The humans had just captured 2,000 Valthor soldiers in 15 minutes, without losing a single Marine. They could have killed them easily. Instead, they captured them and offered diplomatic meetings. They're showing us they can win whenever they want, Krell said. They're giving us a chance to stop. We should press the attack. With what confidence? Krell asked. They knew we were coming. They studied our tactics. They prepared perfect counters. They've been ready for this war since before it started. Before Vex could respond, alarms blared across the flagship. New contacts on sensors. Many contacts, sir. Human fleet detected, tactical called out. They're emerging from behind the third moon. 60 ships, no wait, 100 ships. They're still coming. Krell watched the display as human warships appeared from concealment. They had been hiding in the moon's shadow the entire time, waiting, watching, ready. They were there all along, he whispered. They let us enter the system. They let us make the first move. They've been controlling this entire engagement. Admiral Jun-Ho Lee sat in his command chair aboard the Earthship Endurance. Around him, his fleet held perfect formation. They had been waiting behind the moon for 2 days. Absolutely silent, watching the Valthor fleet approach exactly as intelligence predicted. Sir, the Valthor fleet is breaking formation, his tactical officer reported. They look confused. Hail them, Jun-Ho ordered. No weapons fire unless they shoot first. The communication channel opened. War Prince Krell's face appeared on screen. The young Valthor looked shaken. Admiral Jun-Ho Lee of Earth, Krell said formally. I am War Prince Krell of the Valthor Dominion. Prince Krell, Jun-Ho nodded respectfully. You're in violation of human territorial space. Please withdraw your forces. You're giving us a chance to retreat? War serves no purpose if it can be avoided. We've demonstrated that we were prepared for your attack. We captured your ground forces without harming them. We've shown we can defend our territory. Now you can choose. Continue fighting a prepared enemy or withdraw and reconsider this conflict. Krell looked at the tactical display. His fleet outnumbered the human ships 2-1. But numbers didn't matter if the enemy knew every move you were going to make. The humans had been studying the Valthor for years, maybe decades. They knew Valthor tactics better than the Valthor did. If we retreat, Krell asked carefully, will you pursue? No, we're defenders, not conquerors. Return to your space. We'll return your captured soldiers unharmed. Then we can talk. Vex grabbed Krell's arm. My prince, we cannot retreat. The Emperor is not here, Krell said firmly. I am, and I will not waste Valthor lives in a battle we cannot win. He turned back to the screen. Admiral Lee, we will withdraw. But this war is not over. The Emperor has commanded it. I understand, Jun-Ho said. We'll be here when you return. We've been ready for a long time. The Valthor fleet turned and jumped to hyperspace. No grand battle, no glorious victory. Just a quiet withdrawal after a complete. The news of the Valthor defeat spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Every species, every world, every space station talked about nothing else. The Valthor Dominion, undefeated for 10,000 years, had been turned back by humanity. Not through overwhelming force, but through simple preparation. Professor Hyun Kang sat in his office at the Earth Military Academy, surrounded by reporters from a dozen different worlds. He was an elderly man with kind eyes and a gentle voice. For 50 years he had studied military history across the galaxy. He had written 20 books about warfare, strategy, and conflict. And 5 years ago he had predicted this exact scenario. Professor Kang, a Centauri reporter asked, how did you know the Valthor would attack Earth? Hyun smiled patiently. I didn't know for certain, but I studied their pattern. The Valthor contact new species and offer them membership in the Dominion. If refused, they attack. They have done this 307 times. When they contacted Earth 50 years ago, I calculated we had a 78% chance of war within 50 years. So Earth has been preparing for 50 years? Yes, every merchant ship we sent to Valthor space carried intelligence officers. Every cultural exchange included military analysts. Every trade agreement came with careful observation. We studied them. We learned how they fight, how they think, how they make decisions. When they declared war, we were ready. A Valthor journalist, one of the few still covering human space, asked bitterly. So everything was a lie? All the friendship, all the trade, all the diplomatic exchanges? No, Hyun said firmly. We genuinely wanted peace. We honestly preferred cooperation to conflict. But we're not fools. We knew peace might not be possible, so we prepared for both outcomes. That's not deception. That's prudence. In Valthor space, the same conversation was happening, but with very different tones. The Dominion's propaganda network tried to spin the retreat as a temporary setback. They claimed the human victory was luck. They insisted the next attack would succeed, but Agent Minji Song knew the truth. She had been operating in Valthor space for 8 years, working as a trade coordinator while secretly gathering intelligence. She was a quiet woman who people tended to forget about immediately after meeting. It made her an excellent spy. She sat in a cafe on the Valthor capital world, listening to conversations around her. The citizens were worried. They had been told their military was invincible. Now they learned that a tiny human fleet had defeated a Valthor invasion force. Minji recorded everything, the doubts, the questions, the fear. She sent encrypted reports back to Earth every night. The Valthor Dominion was beginning to crack. Her reports reached the desk of Counselor Yuna Oh, a senior member of Earth's civilian government. Yuna was a practical woman who believed war should be a last resort. She had spent her entire career working for peace. Even now, in the middle of a conflict, she looked for ways to end it. She read Minji's reports carefully. The Valthor people were losing confidence in their leadership. The subject species within the Dominion were questioning whether they should remain loyal. Emperor Thrain's grip on power was weakening. Yuna drafted a new peace proposal. It was generous, almost too generous. No reparations, no territory demands. Just a mutual recognition of borders and a promise not to attack each other. She sent it through diplomatic channels to the Valthor government. Emperor Thrain read the proposal and threw it across his throne room. They mock me, he snarled. They defeat my forces and then offer me peace? They want me to look weak before my entire empire. No, never. We attack again, harder this time. High Commander Draxus stood before the Emperor, choosing his words carefully. My Emperor, our intelligence suggests the humans have been preparing for this war for decades. They know our tactics. They have studied our weapons. I don't care what they have studied, Thrain roared. We have numbers. We have power. We have the might of 12,000 star systems behind us. Gather the full fleet. Every warship. Every soldier. We will crush them through sheer force. Draxus bowed and left. In the hallway outside the throne room, War Prince Krell was waiting. Uncle Draxus, Krell said quietly, the Emperor is making a mistake. You are young, Prince Krell, you do not understand the weight of tradition. I understand that we lost because we were predictable, Krell said. The humans knew what we would do before we did it. Sending more ships using the same tactics will just mean more defeats. The Emperor has decided. Then the Emperor is wrong. Draxus looked around to make sure no one heard. Questioning the Emperor was dangerous. But Krell was right. The Valthor were walking into a disaster. On Earth, Admiral Junho Lee stood in the war room with his senior commanders. They watched as intelligence reports came in. The Valthor were assembling a massive fleet. 5,000 warships, maybe more. Sir, that's 10 times the force they sent before, General Taeyang Shin said. Can we defeat that many? In direct combat? No, Junho said honestly. But we're not going to fight them directly. Show me our defensive plan. The holographic display changed. It showed human space with dozens of marked positions, supply depots, communication relays, trade routes, refueling stations. We can't stop 5,000 ships, Junho explained, but we can stop them from staying in our space. Cut their supply lines. Make it impossible for them to maintain their fleet this far from home. They can invade, but they can't occupy. You want to let them in? Another admiral asked, shocked. I want them to overextend, Junho corrected. Let them come deep into our territory. Stretch their supply lines. Then we cut them off and wait for them to run out of supplies. It was a dangerous strategy. It meant allowing Valthor forces to enter human space. It meant some worlds might face occupation. But it also meant avoiding a direct battle that humanity couldn't win. We need to evacuate more colonies, General Taeyang said. If we're letting them in, we need civilians out first. Already started, Junho replied. We began evacuation schedules 2 weeks ago. Call them routine population distribution programs. No panic. just quietly moving people away from likely invasion routes. Far from Earth, Captain Minho Park and the Horizon's Edge were on a different kind of mission. They were visiting neutral alien governments, explaining humanity's position. Minho had become an unexpected celebrity after walking into the Valthor Peace Conference and walking out alive. He met with the Council of Seven, a group of species that maintain neutrality in galactic conflicts. The council members were curious about humanity's apparent fearlessness. "Captain Park," the head counselor asked, "your species faces an empire 50 times your size. Yet you do not seek allies, you do not beg for help. Why?" Minho considered his answer carefully. "Because asking for help means asking others to die for our cause. We don't think that's right. This is our conflict. We'll handle it ourselves. But you could lose." "Yes," Minho agreed. "We could. But we'd rather lose on our own terms than win because we dragged others into our war." The council members looked at each other. This was unusual. Most species begged for allies, promised anything for support. The humans were turning down help they clearly needed. "However," Minho continued, "we would appreciate neutral observers. If the Valthor violate galactic conventions during this war, we'd like neutral witnesses to document it." "That we can provide," the head counselor said. "We will send observer ships." It was a small victory, but important. The humans were building a record. They were showing the galaxy that they were fighting defensively, following rules, trying to minimize casualties. When this war ended, the historical record would matter. On the Valthor homeworld, Princess Liara watched her father's preparations with growing concern. She was young for a Valthor royal, only 200 years old, but she understood politics better than her father did. She saw what he couldn't see. The Dominion was fracturing. Subject species were questioning their loyalty. Trade partners were becoming nervous. The economy was straining under war preparations, and all because the Emperor couldn't accept that a small human fleet had outsmarted him. Liara made a secret communication to several key military commanders. Not a rebellion. Not yet, just questions, just concerns, just planting seeds of doubt about the Emperor's judgment. Agent Minji Song intercepted one of these communications. She sent it to Earth with a single note. "The daughter is smarter than the father. Monitor her closely." On Earth, Dr. Sora Choi read Minji's report with interest. Princess Liara was opening channels for potential negotiation. Not openly, but the seeds were there. Sora sent a recommendation to the diplomatic corps. "Prepare messages for Princess Liara. Not formal proposals. Just acknowledgement that we're willing to talk when the time comes." Ambassador Hana Kim received the recommendation and smiled. This was her kind of strategy. Plant seeds. Build relationships. Wait for the right moment. She drafted a simple message and sent it through back channels that Liara would notice, but the Emperor wouldn't. "There is always room for dialogue. Peace serves all people better than war." The message reached Liara 3 days later. She read it alone in her chambers. The humans were offering her a way out. Not for themselves, but for the Valthor. They were giving her father's empire a chance to save face. She kept the message secret. The time. 6 months had passed since the Valthor Dominion's massive fleet invaded human space. 6 months of what should have been a quick, decisive war. Instead, it had become a nightmare for the Valthor Empire. Emperor Thrain VII sat on his throne, reading report after report of failures. His fleet had invaded successfully. His ships occupied 3 human star systems. But they couldn't hold them. They couldn't supply them. They couldn't even communicate properly between fleet groups. "How is this possible?" Thrain demanded. "We have 10,000 warships in human space. We should have conquered them by now." High Commander Draxus stood before him, looking older than he had 6 months ago. "My Emperor, the humans are not fighting us directly. They are cutting our supply lines. Every convoy we send gets intercepted. Every supply depot we establish gets sabotaged. Every communication relay we build gets destroyed. Then destroy their fleet. We cannot find their fleet, my Emperor. They use small, fast ships. They strike and disappear. They know our territory better than we do. It's like fighting shadows." On Earth, Admiral Jun Ho Lee reviewed the campaign reports with satisfaction. The strategy was working perfectly. The human fleet, split into dozens of small strike groups, was harassing Valthor supply lines across multiple star systems. They never engaged in direct battle. They just hit convoys, destroyed supplies, and vanished. Commander Jiwon Beck had become something of a legend. Her stealth ship, now called the Shadow Dancer, had destroyed 17 Valthor supply convoys. She never fired on warships, only transport vessels. She paralyzed the Valthor logistics without major battles. Captain Beck, excellent work on the latest convoy intercept. Junho commended through a secure channel. How are your crew holding up? Tired but healthy, sir, Jiwon replied. The Valthor are getting predictable. They keep trying the same supply routes. Makes our job easier. General Taeyang Shin's ground forces were equally effective. Small units of Marines would appear on occupied worlds, sabotage Valthor equipment, free local resistance fighters, and disappear before reinforcements arrived. The Valthor controlled territory, but they couldn't actually occupy it safely. But the real damage was happening far from the front lines. In Valthor space, the economy was collapsing. Agent Minji Song watched it happen from her position as a trade coordinator. Supply shortages, inflation, rationing. The massive military fleet was draining resources faster than the Empire could produce them. She sent detailed reports to Earth every night. Food prices rising, fuel becoming scarce, manufacturing slowing. The Valthor had built an empire on military might, but they had never prepared for a long, expensive war. Worse, the subject species within the Dominion were noticing. If the mighty Valthor couldn't defeat a tiny human fleet, maybe they weren't so mighty after all. Minji recorded conversations in markets, cafes, and public spaces. People were angry. They were hungry. They were questioning why their children were fighting a war that seemed to have no end. Why are we fighting humans? One Valthor merchant complained in a cafe. What did they do to us? They just wanted to be left alone. His friend nodded. My son is on a warship in human space. He writes to me about how they can barely get food supplies. Meanwhile, the Emperor sits in his palace eating feasts. These conversations were happening everywhere. Minji documented them all and sent them to Earth. The Valthor people were turning against their own government. On the border worlds of the Dominion, subject species began declaring independence. First one world, then 3, then a dozen. They asked for human protection, even though humanity was in the middle of a war. Counselor Yuna Oh faced this unexpected problem with her usual pragmatism. We can't protect them all. We're stretched thin already, Ambassador Hana Kim agreed. But we can acknowledge their independence. Show the galaxy we support self-determination. Send diplomatic ships, not military ones. Captain Minho Park found himself making diplomatic visits to former Valthor worlds. He would arrive in an unarmed ship, meet with new governments, and offer simple recognition. No military alliances, no demands. Just acknowledgement that they were now independent. The message was clear. Humans supported freedom, but they weren't conquerors. This drove Emperor Thrain to greater fury. His empire was fracturing while the humans remained calm. He ordered more aggressive attacks, but his commanders couldn't execute them. The fleet was running out of fuel. Soldiers were going hungry. Equipment was breaking down without replacement parts. War Prince Krell sat in his quarters reviewing casualty reports. In 6 months of occupation, the Valthor had lost more soldiers to starvation and accidents than to combat. The human strike forces rarely killed anyone. They just destroyed supplies and disappeared. It was brilliant and terrifying. The humans were winning without fighting. They were defeating the Dominion through patience and logistics. Krell made a decision. He sent a private communication to Princess Liara. We cannot win this war. Father needs to accept peace before the Empire collapses completely. Liara received the message and knew the time had come. She had been building support among military commanders and civilian leaders for months. With Krell's support, she had enough backing to act. She went to her father's throne room with 50 guards who were loyal to her. Thrain looked up in surprise as she entered. Daughter, what is this? Father, Liara said firmly. This war must end. The Empire is collapsing. Our people are suffering. You must accept the human peace terms. Never. Thrain rose from his throne. I am Emperor. I command. You command nothing, Liara interrupted. The military supports me. The council supports me. The people support me. You have led us to ruin. I am taking control. It was a coup, but a bloodless one. Thrain was escorted to his private chambers, alive and unharmed, but no longer in power. Liara assumed the throne as the new empress. Her first act was to contact Earth through diplomatic channels. Ambassador Hana Kim received the communication personally. Empress Liara appeared on the screen, young and exhausted but determined. Ambassador Kim, Liara said formally, I am Empress Liara of the Valthor Dominion. I wish to discuss immediate ceasefire terms. Hana bowed respectfully. Empress Liara, we are ready to talk. Would you like me to travel to Valthor space? Or would you prefer to meet on neutral ground? Neutral ground, I think. I do not wish to repeat my father's mistakes. They agreed to meet on the Council of Seven station, the same neutral ground where Captain Minho had secured observers for the war. 3 days later, Hana sat across from Liara at a conference table. No guards, no weapons, just two women trying to end a pointless war. Ambassador Kim, Liara began, my empire is collapsing. We cannot continue this war. What are your terms for peace? Hana opened her datapad and showed the same proposal Counselor Yuna had drafted months ago. The one Thrain had rejected. These are our terms, Hana said. Mutual recognition of borders. No reparations. No territory demands. We return all prisoners unharmed. You withdraw from human space. We acknowledge each other's sovereignty and agree not to attack. Liara read the terms carefully. Then she read them again. This is incredibly generous. We invaded your space. We killed your people. And you ask for nothing. We ask for peace, Hana corrected. We never wanted this war. We just wanted to be left alone. If you leave us alone, we leave you alone. That's all we ever wanted. Why? You could demand so much more. You've defeated us, Hana smiled gently. Empress Liara, we didn't defeat you to humiliate you. We defeated you to show you that attacking us was pointless. Taking your territory doesn't serve us. Demanding reparations would just make you hate us. We want neighbors, not subjects. We want peace, not revenge. Liara felt something she hadn't felt in months, hope. There is one problem. Your forces have been helping species declare independence from the Dominion. Those worlds were ours. Those worlds were never yours, Hana said firmly but kindly. They were conquered. They stayed in your empire through fear. When they saw you could be defeated, they chose freedom. We didn't encourage them to rebel. We just acknowledged their independence when they asked. If you want them back, you'll need to earn their loyalty, not enforce it through fear. Liara knew Hana was right. The Dominion had been built on conquest, not loyalty. It had been falling apart for years. The war just made it obvious. I accept your terms, Liara said. I will order all Valthor forces to withdraw from human space immediately. They signed the peace treaty that day. It was simple, clear, and fair to both sides. The war was over. The news spread across the galaxy within hours. The Valthor Dominion had officially ended its war with humanity. After 6 months of conflict, peace had returned. Admiral Junho Lee stood in the war room, watching as Valthor ships began their withdrawal. His officers cheered, but he remained quiet. Admiral Bowman Ryu, who had taken command of the Northern Fleet, joined him. We did it, sir. We won, did we? Junho asked thoughtfully. We survived. We protected our people. But winning implies conquest. We didn't conquer anything. We just made war too expensive to continue. Isn't that better than winning through violence? Junho smiled. Yes, it is. 3 months later, former Emperor Thrain VII made one final desperate attempt to regain power. He escaped from his chambers and gathered his personal guard of 500 warriors. He declared himself emperor again and ordered an attack on Earth itself. It was a suicide mission and everyone knew it.